Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So this morning we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 6th Canto, Chapter 2, Ajamil delivered by the Yamadutas, text number 20 and 21. So the word meaning, Sri Shukuvacha, Sri Sukadeva Goswami said, Te, they, the order carriers of Lord Vishnu. Evam, thus, souvenir niya, perfectly ascertaining, dharmam, real religion, bhagavatam, in terms of devotional service, nripa, O King, tam, him, Ajamil, Yamyapasat, from the bondage of the order carriers of Yamaraj, Nimucha, releasing, Vipran, the Brahmana, Mrityo, from death, Amumuchan, rescued. Shri Shukuvacha, Ta evam souvenir niya, Dharmam Bhagavatam nripa, Tam yamya pasan nirmucha, Vipran mrityor amumuchan, Shri Shukuvacha, Ta evam souvenir niya, Dharmam Bhagavatam nripa, Tam yamya pasam nirmucha, Vipran mityoramu muchan, Shri Shukuvacha, Tam evam souvenir niya, Dharman Bhagavatam nirpa, Tam yamya pasanir mucha, Vipran mityoramu muchan. Please chant. Ladies, Any other ladies have to be a little louder so we can hear. Anyone else? Shri Sukuvacha Tameva Suvinirniya Dharmam Bhagavatam Nipa Tam Yam Yam Pasam Nirmucha Vreptam Michuramu Muchan. Thank you. Translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Sri Sukadeva Goswami continued, "My dear king, having thus perfectly judged the principles of devotional service with reasoning and arguments, the order carriers of Lord Vishnu released the Brahmin Ajamil from the bondage of the Yamadutas and saved him from imminent death." There's no purport, so I'll just read text 21, translation and a short purport. Iti pratyudita yam ya duta yatvan yaman nikam yama rajne yata sarvam achachakshu anvindadama. My dear king, my dear Maharaj Parikshit, O subduer of all enemies, after the servants of Yamaraj had been answered by the order carriers of Lord Vishnu, they went to Yamaraj and explained to him everything that had happened. Purport. In this verse, the word pratyudita is very significant. The servants of Yamaraj are so powerful that they can never be hindered anywhere. But this time, they were baffled and disappointed in their attempt to take away a man they considered sinful. Therefore, they immediately returned to Yamaraj and described to him everything that had happened. Om Ajnana Timarandasya Ganjana Shalakaya Chakshunan Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So I'd like to thank the temple management for giving me this opportunity to speak on Srimad Bhagavatam and Holy Sri Vrindavan Dham at Sri Krishna Balaram Mandir. We're all very fortunate to have received the grace of His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada, working to create this temple and give us the opportunity to come and take advantage of what many devotees affectionately remind me of when I come here, that this is our home. Welcome home, they say. Welcome home to all of us and all of you. Please bless me that the few words I speak on these two verses will have some benefit for myself as well as for others. Hare Krishna. So yesterday, I went to Delhi. After talking about being in a holy dham here, I left yesterday to go to Delhi. And I took that new Jamuna Expressway. In all the years that I've been coming here to Vrindavan, to India, I first visited here, Krishna Balaram Mandir, 1976. I've never seen such development as you see along that Jamuna Expressway. So many buildings coming up. But I saw an interesting sign as we were driving up towards Delhi, and it said, "Drive safely, life is precious." Drive safely, life is precious. And I thought about that after having attended the classes here for the last several days, where the speakers were describing how Ajamil was delivered and the power of the chanting of the holy name. So I thought about that. Life is precious. Drive carefully, life is precious. Basically, people in this world, although they may put up signs like that, they have no idea what they're talking about. Neither do they care about or act like life is precious to them. Life is cheap. And most people take it and live it in a very cheap way. There are statistics you can find about how many animals are slaughtered every year for the consumption of meat. In the hundreds of billions. You'd be surprised how high that number is. The hundreds of billions, they're taking that life. Yet they say things like life is precious. All the atrocities that take place around the world in terms of warfare, even devotees being subject to being in troubled areas where there's warfare. How is it that life is precious if innocent civilians are also slaughtered as part of an attempt to gain some land or other temporary assets in this world? So they may say life is precious, but they treat it very insignificantly. And generally speaking, if you value something, you treat it with value. You take care of it. So what is more valuable than life? We should take it very seriously. We should be very careful with it. So Srila Prabhupada, he used, we know in his preaching, he used several English sayings to make his points. And so, in making his point about how life is actually precious, Prabhupada would say things like, time and tide wait for no man. Time will pass, and you cannot buy it back with millions of dollars. Prabhupada tells the story of one man, I think it was when he was in Allahabad with his pharmacy. There was one man, he was dying. He was a wealthy businessman, and he was dying. And he was begging the doctor on his deathbed, please give me 5 more years to complete my plans. But no matter how rich he was, he couldn't buy back or buy 1 extra second. When his time was up, he had to leave. So life is precious, but how it's precious is not known to the general mass of people in the world today. Therefore, it's one of our responsibilities as devotees, as aspiring devotees of Krishna, it's one of our responsibilities to know what is life and how precious it is, and to share that with others. Otherwise, people are simply wasting time. They're simply wasting time, and it's not an unharmful waste of time. Again, we're here in Vrindavan, and those of us who are visitors, we are shocked every time how mischievous the monkeys are. Monkeys are expert at wasting time. And we can see that. If we can look at them, then maybe we'll learn a lesson. But otherwise, they're always up to some mischief, wasting time. We don't want to be like that. Indeed, utilization of time is one of the stages of Bhava Bhakti. As we come from Sadhana Bhakti to Bhavana Bhakti, one of the turning points in that development of our spiritual life is how we utilize time. We're not wasting a second. Not wasting a second that could be used for serving Krishna. So this is what Ajamil has realized. He's realized that life is indeed precious. It's precious, and he's realizing it because he's seeing how it slipped away, slipped out of his hands. I was once sitting in a Bhagavatam class, and I was dozing off. Unfortunately, I have to admit, I was dozing off a little bit in the Bhagavatam class. Then all of a sudden, the class ended, and I realized, oh, I missed it. I missed it. We don't want to be like that at the time of death. That we're dozing off through our life in Krishna consciousness, not taking it seriously, wasting time. And then all of a sudden at the end, we wake up, oh, I missed it. I missed it. We don't want to be like that. Ajamil, he learned these lessons. He learned two things. He learned life. He learned about what is life. And he learned about what does it mean to say that life is precious. What is life? Life, well, we can say what life is not. And I'm reminded of that first because of the recent remembrance and celebration of His Holiness Bhakti Swarup Damodar Maharaj that took place here in the temple. His disappearance day or appearance day? Disappearance day. Because Prabhupada loved to talk with Bhakti Swarup Damodar Maharaj about the scientists, about life. Life comes from life. And so one thing we can say about the question of what is life, the first point that Ajamil realized is that it's not a bunch of chemicals. Life is not just a chemical reaction. We can say that. Life is not just a bunch of chemical reactions. Neither is life just a linear string of events happening one after another. We have this concept, I was born a certain date, and I did different activities, and I grew, and I changed, and produced byproducts, and it's all going along nicely according to a line, and then it comes to an end at death. Most people have that conception about life, but that's not life either, because life is something different than that. Life is cyclical. It's not linear in its nature. It's repeating. Samsara. It's repeating over and over and over and over again. And we foolishly think it's just linear, or there's a one life and there's no more. One body and there's no more. We have much to learn about what is life. Especially when we talk about the significance of life. Let's save that for the precious side of the discussion here, but life itself. What is life? Krishna is life. Krishna is life. And what is Krishna? Krishna describes in Bhagavad Gita, in the 10th chapter, his vibhutis, or his opulences. I'm the light of the sun, the moon. He's the taste in water. He's the ability in man. So many descriptions that Krishna gives there in that 10th chapter that describes what is the life of everything. Krishna is the life of everything. Krishna is also the life of ourselves. Prabhupada in one lecture explains why we like ourselves, or why we're self-interested. He describes that the spirit soul is self-interested because originally we are all part and parcel of Krishna. Mamaivamso jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatana. And because we're part of Krishna, even we are attracted to ourselves. We're attracted to Krishna. The reason why we're self-interested is because Krishna is there. We're part and parcel of Krishna. He says there in the Gita quite plainly, these are my separated parts and parcels. Krishna is our origin. We carry his nature, just like a drop of seawater carries the nature of the entire sea. Obviously not as powerful, obviously not as vast in quantity, but in quality it's there. But what is that quality? It's of the whole. It's not something different. Jai 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 Shri Gauranitai, Jai 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 Shri Krishna Balaram, Jai Jai Shri Radha Shyama Sundar. So we're attracted to ourselves because we are originally part and parcel of Krishna. The conception of I. All of us have this conception, I. We're an individual. Where does that come from? It comes from the supreme I, Lord Sri Krishna. Because he has a sense of I. We as his part and parcels also have a sense of I. But in this material world, we're mistaken. We're thinking, I am that, instead of I am this. We're thinking that I am Bhagavan. I am powerful. I'm great. Ishwaraham, aham bhogi, siroham, balavan sukhi. We have the false ego, not the real ego. But there is a real ego, and that real ego we have because Krishna has. Our real ego is meant to be Das, Dasosmi. I am your servant. But in conditioned life, we become forgetful of this, and we think that we're something other than we are. So Krishna is our very life, is our very self. And that is what life is. Sat, Chit, Ananda. These three things. Life is Sat, Chit, Ananda. It's eternal. We'll always have this. Krishna says to Arjuna in the Gita, never was there a time when I did not exist, or you or all these kings. We always had our existence. We always had this conception of I. Sat Chit, conscious. Life is conscious. Although we see it manifest at different levels around us. We hear descriptions from the Shastra and from our acharyas of how mountains are personalities, or stones, they're personalities. We think, oh, how is a stone personality? I'm a person, I have consciousness. Does a stone have consciousness? A stone may have consciousness, yes, but at a lower level than you're experiencing. So therefore you think it has no life. This is an argument they use to slaughter so many animals, isn't it? The animal has no soul. But the animal is acting like us. It may not have as developed consciousness as us, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't have consciousness and it doesn't have life. Life is not there. Sat Chit Ananda. Without Ananda, without pleasure, what is life? What is life? Anandamaya Abhyasat. The Shastras describe that it's our nature to be enjoyment seeking. That is what life is meant for. That's what life is about, is having some pleasure, some enjoyment. Life, so-called life without that, is simply hell. So therefore, most people today, they're living a life of hell because they're wanting this ananda, they're not getting it. So life, Sat Chit Ananda, Krishna is life. That is what is life. And that's the first part of Ajamil's realization, his opportunity here. I have life, I've been saved, as is described here in the first verse today. Ajamil, the carriers of Lord Vishnu, released the Brahman Ajamil from the bondage of the Yamadutas and saved him from imminent death. So Ajamil was conscious, oh, I've been saved from losing life. And I've been saved from losing the most precious thing. That most precious thing is that I have the opportunity, and each and every one of us have this opportunity, to develop my consciousness, to develop my pleasure, to extend my existence to the greatest extent as possible. That is available in the human form of life. Not only the human form of life, but it's available in this Kali Yuga by the most munificent incarnation, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Namo Mahavanandaya Krishna Prema Padayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gaurati Vishay Namaha. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has come in this age, at this time, and he's given what has never been given before. He's given an opportunity for you to develop your consciousness, to extend your existence, and to experience your pleasure to the greatest degree possible. That's available for each and every one of us. That is precious. That is something we don't want to lose. To have that opportunity. Just imagine all the different perfections which are described in the Vedic literatures. Heavenly enjoyment, merging into the absolute, impersonal Brahman, going to Vaikuntha Loka, becoming a resident on the same planet as the Lord, having the same bodily features as the Lord. So many perfections are described in the Vedic literatures that are available to one who is conscious of the preciousness of life. But all of that is insignificant compared to the perfection offered by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Are we going to let that slip through our hands? Are we going to sleep through our life and miss the opportunity to take advantage of that great mercy of the Lord? Something that's never been given before, it's described. Something that's never been given. The Supreme Lord, Swayam Bhagavan, if He's giving something that's never been given before, we should want that. We should see that as precious. And Ajamil, he did see it as precious. Oh, now I realize what is precious. Now I realize. I hadn't realized that before. If Ajamil had realized that before, would he have spent his life in the way that he spent it? If any of you had realized before the value of what Srila Prabhupada has given us, if you realize that, would you spend your life doing something else other than trying to achieve that mercy? I don't think so. But we have to endeavor to develop our consciousness in this way. And that development of consciousness will help us change our behavior. Because as I was saying at the beginning, we act on what we value. We act on what we value. Consider the Yamadutas that are described, what they did is described in text number 21. They valued their service, their relationship with Yamaraj. And so therefore, after having this experience which was new to them, they were defeated by the Vishnu Dutas. What did they do? They could have done so many things, disruptive things. They could have lost faith in their order giver. They could have done so many things, but because they valued that relationship, they acted in a certain way. They acted in a way in which they took the opportunity to inquire from Yamaraj. So what we value, we act on. And so once we realize that life is precious, what life is, how it's precious, then we should act in that way. We should act in that way. Ajamil, he got what we have in the BBT book, the second chance. He got a second chance. A second chance to do what? To act differently. Now I have another chance at life. Let me act in a different way than I acted the last time. And so we'll see in the coming verses how he acted differently. And the lesson that will be running through those verses as we read them will be, how are we going to act differently? than we did prior to having this knowledge? That's a question we all wake up with every day. Will I act according to my material conditioning? Will I act like I'm an American? Will I act like I'm an Indian? Will I act like I'm a young man? Will I act like I'm an old man? Will I act like I'm a black man? Will I act like I'm a white man? How am I going to act now that I have knowledge? Well, I would propose that how we should act, how our behavior should change, how our behavior should come in line with values, what we value from the instruction of Bhagavad Gita. That's the base. That's the base, at least. We should act according to that. And if we do that, then we're showing that we value Krishna and his instructions. So I have jotted down here a few things, and I welcome your feedback, but I think these are a few things from the Bhagavad Gita which are basic ways in which we act as devotees. We act as devotees. Number one, samadarshana. When we preach Krishna consciousness, we do it in such a way that we try to include others. Not that we're sectarian, that we try to push others away or find faults with them or segregate them from the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to include everyone in the Sankirtan movement of the Lord. Not just Hindus, not just young people, everyone. Samadarshana, we're very inclusive, and we should be like that in our preaching, giving everyone the opportunity to get the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Ahimsa, or non-cruelty. We should treat each other in ways which are encouraging rather than discouraging. I was speaking with one of my GBC godbrothers, and he was lamenting the fact that sometimes in our dealings with each other, we're actually doing great harm to one another when we could actually, and we should actually, be acting differently. Prabhupada said that, well, at least it's said of Srila Prabhupada, that he created a house that the whole world could live in. Well, who wants to live in if every time you turn around, there's some criticism, problem, this or that, so many things. Cruelty in our words and interactions with each other. Of course, the bigger connotations of cruelty are there. We're all the animals slaughtered that I mentioned in the war and all these things. Those are not things which are something that we would take part in, but this idea of ahimsa, non-cruelty, in our relationships with each other, I think is something important. Tolerance, respect, forgiveness, these ideas. Another of these Gita values, that things that we value in our lives from the Bhagavad Gita: humility, amanitva. We see that Ajamil, when he got his second chance, he very humbly and quietly went to Rishikesh to perfect his being. He didn't make a big show or splash trying to say that, well, okay, now I got saved by the Vishnu Dutas and I want recognition for that. No, he humbly took the situation and worked to achieve perfection. Humility is always very important. Indeed, in Arjuna's instruction by Krishna, the first thing Arjuna had to take was a humble position. Dharma is another of these Gita values which can guide our life. Right action, being guided by the scriptures, not by our intelligence or by whim. These things are important. And priti or affection, affectionate dealings amongst one another. Krishna, in his instruction to Arjuna in the 12th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, talked about their relationship. Because you are my dear friend, I'm revealing this truth to you. So developing our relationships with one another, and those come in at least three varieties. With those that are more advanced than us, we render service and inquire from. Those that are less advanced for us, we try to help them by instruction and care. And those that are equal to us, and probably this is the most important category, those that are equal to us, we create friendships amongst them. When I was in the Army as a young man, the friendships created there in that stressful kind of a situation are the type of things that last for a lifetime. So we're also at war here, working together to spread Srila Prabhupada's movement. And so the relationships we develop in the Brahmacharya ashram are particularly important for helping us remain faithful to our Dharma and our service throughout the years. So these things should characterize our behavior where they may not have characterized our behavior prior to understanding how life is precious, as Ajamil has understood here. What we value should be shown and will be shown in our behavior. So we should strive to incorporate these things in our behavior as we move forward from receiving the mercy, just as Ajamil is moving forward from having received the mercy as described in these verses of Srimad Bhagavatam. So does anyone have any comment or question they would like to make at this point in time? Mukunda Maharaj, our dear godbrother, who's going through a very serious health crisis at this point in his life, he told me one time that when you ask for questions, you have to wait 60 seconds. If no one answers, no one asks within 60 seconds, then, you can go. So we must be getting close to 60 seconds at this point in time. So on that remembrance of our dear, somebody? Panchagoda Prabhu?
We don't want to let you off the hook that easy. So life is precious, and Prabhupada has given us an eye-opener, awakening. I mean, Jamila, he saw the Yamadutas and the Vishnu Dutas, and he was on the verge of death, so he had that fixed determination to go to Haridwar and perfect his life. How is it that we have that so much enthusiasm and determination to change our lives and appreciate the preciousness of it, but then often we forget about that and fight with one another and also fall back again to the bad activities that our previous life?
That's a very good question. It shows the power of the material energy, for one thing. And it also shows us how vigilant we have to be on the path. That it's not easy. It doesn't get to the point where we don't have to be vigilant or very considerate about what we're doing and how we're doing it, because we can slip from the path very easily. Material energy and her service, Maya and her service to Krishna, is to make sure that sincere people come forward. And sincere people are those that are continually endeavoring. So I think it just shows us that it marks out the path. What's okay and what's not okay, and we have to be aware of that. So, and also it shows that this path is also dependent upon mercy. It's not just our endeavor alone. It's dependent upon mercy. And if we lose that mercy, then no matter how vigilant we are in proceeding on that path, we'll still be knocked off of it. And what's the number one way that one can lose that mercy? Vaishnava aparad. Vaishnava aparad is the way we can lose it. So we're surrounded, we're living with, we're serving with Vaishnavas, and we shouldn't think, this Vaishnava is of this level, I'm of that level, or this Vaishnava is like this. Making distinction among the Vaishnavas like that, but we should be very careful not to create any offense, and that way we'll be able to remain on the path. So that would be my response. You have some idea you can share with us also? We're not going to let you off either.
You answered perfectly.
Question? Shrestha Prabhu? Jamil's story is like descending, yeah.
It's like a ascending process from bad to good. But we see how much devotees, they go from good, they started, devotion life for 30 years, 40 years. Then they have more opulence than what they left as they came to Krishna consciousness. And then they will be tested. So why more contradictory on this through ascending and descending process?
I'm not quite sure I understood the question, but I have an answer anyway. Whether we are ascending or descending at different times in our life, Lord Ramachandra has guaranteed that if one once says with sincerity that from this day forward I surrender unto you and accept you as my Lord and Master, then he will never abandon you. So it's not that even if we appear to lose the mercy and slip from the path, that we have lost everything. We've seen in our own lives of our own godbrothers how those have gone away, but somehow or another, at the end of life, Krishna, Prabhupada makes some arrangement for them so that they can continue and move forward in their devotional service and their growth. So that's very faith-giving. Of course, we don't want to try to rely on just the special certificate. We want to earn the degree by studying properly. But that special certificate is there. I think of our godbrother Sudama Swami. He was a Swami at one time. Prabhupada told him that if you go to Japan and you open a temple, a center in Japan, that I guarantee you'll go back to Godhead. Something like that, he told him. Of course, that was early on. And so many years went when Prabhupada was with us, then Prabhupada left, and Sudama left, and no one heard, no one knew anything. But what we did know wasn't good. But then at the end, somehow or another, he got the faith to come to Los Angeles. I was living in Los Angeles at that time. And when he left the world, there was surrounded with a room full of devotees chanting Hare Krishna. I mean, you couldn't have a more auspicious departure. So how is it possible? Because Prabhupada is always there, very appreciative of the service that we do. Even a little service is not unnoticed and not unappreciated. So we should try to do a lot, not just to get away with a little, but we should try to do a lot, and Krishna will be there to protect us, whether we up and down. Devotional service is like that anyway. It's going up, but it's up with dips. Yes? There's some question? Do you want to give Mataji the microphone? She chanted the verse, but you couldn't hear her chanting the verse, so if she asks a question, we have to definitely get her a microphone.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you so much for a very thoughtful and thought-provoking class. I just had a thought come through, and I was hoping I could get your comments on it. So when you were talking about Samadarshana and Amanatva, the thought that came to my mind was, it seems like the Samadarshana and Amanatva or other qualities we develop because of even a little bit of actual consciousness of Krishna, his position as a master and our position, as you said, as Dasosmi or Das, seems like the quality of Samadarshana, Amanatva, other good qualities seem to have a different quality than when we try to develop those qualities on our own. Because a lot of times we do try to be Samadarshana, Amanatva, but it seems like we often fail. So just want to mention that and hope for your comments on it. Thank you.
Yes, I mean, there are definitions of these terms or conceptions of them that come from someplace other than our guru, our parampara. I just heard recently someone was saying that someone was giving advice to a Vaishnavi who was engaged in distribution of literature, and they were giving advice that they shouldn't do this because it's like not chaste or something like that. Now, one could take a definition like that and say, well, yes, that's not chaste, but where is it coming from? Is that part of what our acharyas, how they've shaped these ideas and concepts and giving them to us? Srila Prabhupada was directly asked that when he was talking with his Vaishnavi disciples in, I think it was in Chicago. They were going to the airport and they were distributing literatures. And they said, well, Prabhupada, how should, we're supposed to be simple, chaste, but going and distributing literatures in public places, that requires something else. And the Prabhupada said, there's no problem. Be a lion in the chase and a lamb at home, or something like that. In other words, he shaped that definition for us, and that definition is what we're talking about when we're talking about values from the Gita. Values from the Gita given to us by our Guru. So, I mean, that's just one example, but as you mentioned, you know, Amanitva as well as Samadarshana, there may be different things. Samadarshana, one may think that, well, that doesn't mean you don't point out you're right or you're wrong. Prabhupada was very bold in his preaching. No, that's a wrong idea. So are we saying he's not inclusive? No, he's inclusive, but it doesn't mean we're fooled, that anything goes. And so these definitions are shaped by our guru, our acharyas, how we apply them. And that's the way we should understand them. Does that answer your question? So the bell has struck 9. I think that means before it strikes 10, we better stop. Thank you very much. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.